You know, I used to live somewhere like this. High rises and traffic and noise and pollution and stuff. And then I came on holiday to Portugal, and I drove through a beautiful area called the Alentejo. And I stopped living in this and came to live in Portugal instead. I'll show you where. I came to Portugal in 1987 on my honeymoon, and we came up to this lake, and I fell in love with it so much that I bought a couple of houses sitting on the side. Portugal in those days was quite backward really. A lot of the agriculture was still done by oxen and cart. That's me helping with the harvest in summer of 87. Anyway, after the threshing, the bulldozers would turn up and they'd all be rigged onto the back of the threshing machines. Great big wooden boxes. Everything was done very manually. Anyway, I went back to the UK and loaded everything onto my double-decker bus and drove out here. It was a lovely drive, but quite slow, as you can imagine, 42 miles an hour top speed. And there were some experiences on the way down here, but eventually we drove down the track and over the hills into the little place that we'd bought and unloaded with the help of some hitchhikers who we picked up. Very quickly friends and family came to help, so within a very short space of time that turned into that, and then a couple of years later it was that. It was an interesting time, breaking up virgin soil, making flower beds and vegetable patches. And the flower beds, all the vegetable patches, more often than not, were built over later on, so that turned into that. It was constant foundations, roofs, putting on, taking off, making extensions. And we always had friends and family come to help. This was my father sitting on the ground breaking up bricks because we couldn't afford half bricks. But it was a constant building site. All the time, bricks, stones, cement, pipes. It was a nightmare, quite honestly, a lot of the time. But in this time my family was growing. First of all came Archie, quickly followed by his sister Araby, and then a couple of years later by their sister Alexandra, who was always a bit feisty. And we had my family coming out to stay a lot during this time as well. But one of the best things was making the garden. So this was the garden as we first started, and this is it 20 years later. It was beautiful to see everything growing up. This was the Quinta when we first saw it, the first day we ever saw it, and this is it 23 years later. And we couldn't have done it without the help of a lot of people. Woofers, helpexers, workawayers, and the family, always the family. But of course the basis is the core staff of Portuguese. They've always been there for us. We're always welcomed with friendly faces. And the pace in the Alentejo hasn't really changed much. A lot of the agriculture is still done by hand. The cork is still cut by hand and taken away. Sheep are still herded with a shepherd and dogs. Horse and cart still around. It's very nice. It's been a wonderful few years. The family now have grown up, university, working. But the best thing is when they come back and we can go out on the lake together and just wait and sit around and wait for the otters to come out. It's been a wonderful time, and I do really wonder what the next 20 years will bring.